Just want to do a little forward for this video. Since Square Enix is such an awesome consumer-loving company, if you record the game using the function built into the PS5, it adds this really sick and cool, totally non-obstructive watermark to all your footage after the fact, which I didn't realize until I had beaten the game. And to be honest, I didn't want to replay the game to get better footage, so I'm saying sorry to you now. Also, when I found out, I did think it was kind of funny that they did this, and I think it kind of adds to the entire Fever Dream experience that is Crisis Core. And yes, I do use the built-in PS5 recording function for my PS5 games. It's tough out here, man. Okay, I'm doing my best. The US dollar has literally fallen by record numbers this year. Can you blame me? Anyways, last thing, it must be said that Crisis Core gives away a lot of crucial story information and twists from the original FF7, so if you're unfamiliar with it and want to play it, do that before consuming anything Crisis Core related. I will also just be spoiling absolutely everything about this game, so take that into consideration. Okay, let's actually get started with the video.
No way. He just ate my hair.
Now, assuming that everyone still here has played Crisis Core, I do not need to tell you that this game is just a little bit only a hair on the strange side. I'm still relatively new to Final Fantasy games. I love 7, I love the remakes, and 16 is a game that I played in the year 2025. I know that this series can get wacky, but I have to admit, I was still a little caught off guard with this one. It wasn't just the story either, it was just a little bit, or maybe more than a little bit, of everything. It left me with this feeling after like an out-of-body experience, I guess. I know that I got all the way through it, I know I watched all the cutscenes, I know I heard activating combat mode thousands of times, and yet I still feel like it was all just an incredibly vivid fever dream. I mean, where do I even start with this? Maybe with Genesis. How about with the sniper section? Or what about gambling on my limit breaks with the D&W system? At least I think it was actually gambling. How about that this type of game has gone the way of the dodo? The PSP is now a relic of an era of mobile handheld gaming that will most likely never be seen again. I don't say this to bum out all my nostalgic 90s and 2000s babies out there. Instead, I wanted to bring it up because despite the flaws of this era, this remaster still keeps all of that weird low-spec PSP jank intact. Would it have been cool if they fully redid everything, maybe filled in the area with more NPCs or with more fancy interactable futuristic gaming tech that every company totally takes advantage of now? Yeah, it would have been cool, but I like it even more that they kept the original PSP vibe even with the new shiny graphics. However, those graphics are where it confuses me a little bit. Totally a personal brain barricade here, but because it looks so much like the new remakes that I expect such a high bar of quality from, seeing all that PSP jank with the fresh coat of paint is a feeling I just kinda never really got used to. It gave me some like mobile phone game vibes, but without the predatory monetization that preys on the impressionable youth of today. One thing I definitely didn't miss from the PSP era is side mission design. Now, they are most definitely made to be played at like 1 or 2 at a time on the bus on the way to work. Crisis Core here accounts for 300 days of work, and they are literally all the same. Run through the same maps to find chests or fight not so random encounters until you get to a big boy boss enemy at the end. Rinse and repeat 300 times. Unfortunately, I played this on a PS5, so that would be a bit tough to bring on the bus or the back of my mom's car to actually make these enjoyable. The gameplay already felt a bit too samey to me in the main missions that had actual variety, so after a while the side missions were a big no from me. Somehow, by the will of whatever higher powers out there, I was still able to do about 50 of these. Luckily, I thought that there were still plenty of interesting distractions outside of this monotonous side mission combat routine. You see, Crisis Core was also a product of another bygone era of gaming, one where AAA studios weren't afraid to get wacky, sometimes to a detrimental degree, but it is so much more interesting than the same repeated formulas. As I said earlier, this is a Final Fantasy game with a whole 20+ minute sniper section that has an upgrade system for the sniper. It's also probably my favorite part of the game. I counted perfume drops to create the perfect fragrance to impress Aerith. I became the Shinra Squad champion. I could have seen the 7 Wonders of Nibelheim, but I only did 3 because I am lazy. And the hardest one I didn't even count because I did it out of order. For all of just the decent monotony found in the combat, what keeps the gameplay in my mind still is all of those weird one-off mini-game type of sections. They don't all hit, but at least they had some life to them outside of typical button-mashy action gameplay. And I was especially surprised by some of the RPG mechanics here. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has a story that is more than twice as long as this one, with a total amount of content nearing 100 hours, but Crisis Core is the one with loadouts and materia fusion. It's just weird to me. Materia fusion is surprisingly very in-depth and totally awesome. However, I didn't really need to engage with it at all to beat the game. I made like one cool dark fire spell that broke the last few missions and I was home free. Obviously, it would become much more prevalent if you decide to do all 300 side missions, but a system this dope requiring really no engagement to beat the game is just sorta strange. Having materia loadouts is sick too, but we only control Zack and he only has 6 total slots to use. Still cool to have, but it's just strange again to see it only in this one. Now, if there's one mechanic that I think sums up the entire gameplay experience of Crisis Core, it would be the DMW. Don't show this to your favorite Twitch streamer because they might get addicted. It's the only ethical form of gambling I have ever come across in my life. At least I think it's actually gambling. You see, the beauty of the DMW is that I still have no real idea of how it actually works. I read the tutorial at the beginning of the game like 15 times, I beat the whole game with it, and I still have no idea how it functions. But I still just love it for the absolute insane idea that it is. Being able to use so many summons and limit breaks without swapping a red materia is sick nasty. I also like that each limit is attached to a character in the story. It especially hits very hard at the end. I don't know if dislike is the word, but it still just kind of hurts my brain a bit to think I was able to beat this whole game without actually knowing how it functioned on a mechanical level. Like I said, I don't actually even know if it's random. And I don't know why they put level ups through it, but if it's not actually random, it shouldn't matter, right? Is it possible to just be level 1 for the whole game because you have bad RNG? And having the questions like this about a core mechanic like leveling up through the system is why I honestly wouldn't have it any other way. What I would have liked to have literally any other possible way in this game is anything that had to do with Genesis. I wish he was never born. I know that is extremely harsh. However, I really just don't like this theater kid and what he represents here. The idea of a Final Fantasy VII prequel about Zack is the most logical compilation idea they came up with. Despite his extreme importance to the plot of the original, he remains a bit of a mystery. He's only in that game for like 2 minutes, and yet his entire being creates Final Fantasy VII as we know it. That's real aura. Seeing his impact on characters like Cloud, Aerith, and Sephiroth is the appeal for most people here, I think. Unfortunately, I would go as far to say that Zack doesn't really feel like the main character here. He's still the best character in the game, but his impact on the actual plot seems minimal. All this insane, wacky, mid-2000s philosophical anime nonsense is popping off around him, and all he can do is just kind of react to it. I went in thinking this was going to be his story, which I think is 100% justified. He's on the cover of the goddamn game. But instead, he's just the goofy hero guy with the flip phone who cleans up the mess created by the 5 out of 10 soap opera about Sephiroth and his goofy, gifted Chosen One pals. And the one that gets the most attention is Genesis.
Shut up!
All that awaits you
Up! I'm
is a
warning you!
somber morrow.
Even the actual characters hate this guy. Listen, I don't know who Gact is. I'm sure he's cool, but was he really worth derailing half of this game's story to set up a sequel story to the original story that was never even finished? And I would even go as far to say that that sequel story seems to miss the point of a lot of FF7's charm, just based on what I witnessed here. Dirge of Cerberus is going to be so fun, I cannot wait. There's the quotes of Loveless, Angeal talking about monsters while growing an angel wing because he's the friend of Sephiroth, the G cells, hey you ate my hair. It is all, in my eyes, total nonsense. But it's still memorable nonsense even if it kind of blows sometimes. As I said at the start, I'm still just dipping my toe into this whole JRPG thing, and this was probably the strangest, most jumbled plot I've played. At least it was kind of funny, up until Nibelheim. You can do your own wacky shenanigans, and I won't get too in my feels about it. I can move on. But once Genesis injected himself as the major influence on Sephiroth realizing that he's actually a test tube baby, I wanted to turn the game off. And I know that there will be some people who are like, but you like the remake, so clearly you should be fine with them changing the story in some aspects. This felt so much different. This doesn't have the vibe of like an alternate timeline, sequel, redo type of thing. This is them actively changing in the lore. Japanese pop star guy was here the whole time. I suppose it somewhat waits to be seen in part 3, but at least Rebirth kept one of the best origins ever to any video game villain intact, unlike this one. And then even afterwards when Zack escapes Nibelheim, the dude just keeps getting in the way. What should be an incredible final build-up to Zack's defining sacrifice against Shinra, you know, this man's employer who we found out was extremely evil and experimented on him, is instead a mad scramble to conclude all of the Genesis stuff where he eats your hair, side character number 9 is an Angeal clone that helps you, but not really, and capped off with a fight where he tries to like worship a goddess, he turns into a god because of course he does, it's Final Fantasy, and I have no idea what was going on at the end, I can't lie to you. In fact, I don't even think Zack knew, I don't even think Zack really cared. And that's why this stuff is so frustrating, because half of this game is full of stuff that made me want to care. There is some gold here.
How about you? Me? Gungaga. Hey, what's so funny about that?
To the surprise of nobody, the parts of the plot I did like were anything to do with somebody from the original. They may have clumsily injected Genesis into Nibelheim, but it doesn't stop the Sephiroth fight in the reactor from going insanely hard. Seeing my schizophrenic goat Cloud before the mental illness, meeting Aerith for the first time, building the flower cart, running into Yuffie and Wutai, fighting Angeal to get the Buster Sword, all of these moments stand out in my mind as reasons why Crisis Core should be played as a fan of Final Fantasy VII. Even some of the new stuff can be solid, especially with Angeal and Cissnei. I just wish there was more. I knew Cissnei from Rebirth before this, and the way she talks about Zack in that game hyped me up to see how they interacted here. What's here is great, but I find it hard to believe now after playing that he had that much of an impact on her. It feels like they kind of barely knew each other. It honestly kind of feels like that with Cloud too, which is arguably the most important relationship to develop here. Most of my man's screen time is him moaning as a Mako poison zombie. Based on what is in this game, I find it extremely hard to believe that these two guys were best friends. And maybe some stuff happens off screen or in a book or something, but based on what is here, it is just not enough. Which sucks because my boy needs more spotlight. He pretty much is Mr. Final Fantasy. He's in Smash Brothers. But despite the lack of screen time for the good moments and the issues I have with Genesis, somehow, someway, the ending here still hits like crack. Through the cluster of nonsense that is Crisis Core, the ending shines through to deliver one of the most memorable scenes in all of Final Fantasy VII. Zack's last stand against Shinra is the type of death most men dream of having. I knew it was gonna happen, but man, it evokes such a feeling that no matter what, you still gotta try to fight fate. Everything here from the music to the DMW-induced flashbacks to the entire spectacle of that huge army falling to one man's Buster Sword, it all just feels incredible. He also starts the fight with one of, if not the best quote in the series. And that final gameplay portion where Zack is too weak to fight the last few soldiers is one of the best examples of gameplay storytelling I've experienced in the past few years. It felt straight ripped out of God of War 2, but flipped in its emotions, because unlike Kratos, I knew this was it for my man Zack. Then it's capped off with that beautiful final cutscene with all the music swelling in my ear. Zack clutching Cloud's head to his bloody chest hits like a freight train. They don't deserve this. Cloud's scream of pure agony is powerful, a cry for help from a boy who has only known loneliness and anguish for his entire life, who just can't take it anymore. As Zack gets lifted up towards the heavens by his mentor, I was moved. And usually when I use the term moved with a piece of media, it means that something is like a 10 out of 10 masterpiece to me. And usually when I say that, it comes as a wrapper for the entire piece of art. Crisis Core is one of the few pieces of entertainment I've ever experienced that I would say was just kinda decent for most of the runtime, but then straight up Shiryu can be in the nuts at the end. Just for this last stretch of like 20-25 minutes, this game deserves a playthrough. It may be a weird concoction of mid-2000s angst and jank, but as a fan of FF7, it was for sure worth one playthrough. I wouldn't say it was all that good, but it was easily one of the most memorable and creative games I played in recent memory. It can also be fun and goofy if you just don't take it all too seriously. It genuinely got me emotional at the end, and it had finally felt worth it at that moment. And at the end of the day, I think I would still rather play something like this Frankenstein mess of a video game than others I played in the past where its critical reception and audience reception can be summed up as it's safe and it's good.